What's up guys, Artem MMA Analysis here, going to be talking about Bellator 280 Beta versus Kongo 2. This is my prediction video, and to be honest, this is actually my first time looking at the card mainly. I have done a little bit of research on the main card fighters, but as for the preliminary fighters, I'm not too familiar with them, and I'm not too sure about them. So not a lot of confidence on the prelims, but for the main card and the main event especially, I'm definitely pretty confident in that. I feel like no one's really talking about Bellator 280, it's kind of a weird situation. Like, they've made it to Paris, they've beaten UFC to Paris, but they haven't really seemed to be promoting it as much as I expected them to, because Bellator, for some reason, they're kind of weird with their promotions. Like, they're not as good as promoting or marketing themselves as UFC is. I feel like when UFC goes to Paris, it's going to be a massive deal. They're going to build it up as something crazy, and Bellator's made it to Paris, and no one seems to be talking about it as much as what I would expect them to. Now, even the odds as well, I don't know if this is a France thing or anything like that, but the fight's only 5 days out. We've only got odds for the main event for BetUS and Vader. And speaking of BetUS, that's the best value you can actually get on Ryan Bader right now. If you use my link, you can actually get a 125% sign-up bonus. You throw down a little bit more than $100, you're going to get that 125% sign-up bonus. You put down 100, you're going to end up with a $225 bet for Ryan Bader. You could potentially be getting $100 from that. Ryan Bader inside the distance is probably going to be a lot better value than that as well. So I feel like now is probably a pretty good time to log into BetUS to sign up, get that 125% bonus with my link, and then you can throw down on Ryan Bader, because I think that Ryan Bader's a lock of the night, man. I feel like he's definitely going to beat Tik Kongo in this rematch here. Alright, now that that long intro is out of the way, we're looking at Viktor Rashiri versus Kamara. I'm very sorry, I definitely said his name wrong. Two French fighters fighting in the early prelim of the night in Paris, in France. Very big opportunity for both guys. Both guys took their first professional loss recently. I'm picking Rashiri to win. I think he's got a pretty good ground game, pretty good grappling base, and I think that he will beat Barama in this one here. It's pretty hard to find a lot of information on either of these guys, but Rashiri did recently lose about 8 months ago, and so did Barama about 8 months ago as well. So both guys making a comeback after a similar sort of time off. The guy with a little bit more experience, like one more fight experience, is Rashiri, but I like his ground game a little bit more. I'm picking Rashiri, probably by decision in that one there. Moving on, Yusuf Quabas versus Matteo. Yusuf Quabas has taken a lot of time off. About 3 years off. So I'm very interested to know why 89% of people are picking Quabas. Does he have a kickboxing background? Does he have a boxing background? Like, what is Quabas doing in this time off that he's had? Like, what does he do? What has he spent 3 years doing? I'm assuming he spent 3 years improving. But Matteo, I feel like, depending on what these odds are, could be a pretty live underdog. He's been fighting a lot more recently. He only fought about 3 weeks ago, but he won by TKO there. He also beat a guy that was 0-1 again, about only a few months ago, and he did lose by submission to Akmush in his debut. But here's the thing, it's just so hard to kind of get a read on this fight. Quabas hasn't fought for 3 years. How are we meant to know what he looks like? Tapology's picking Quabas. I personally, like, when I first looked at this fight, I was like, you know what? If the odds are quite wide, Litho could be a very wide underdog. But I feel like a lot of people just started picking Quabas because he's undefeated, and now that the votes have built up like that, I don't really know. I can't really give you a confident pick whatsoever, but I feel like there's got to be a reason why 90% of people are picking Quabas here. Now, Pedro Cavalho versus Pyota Nidaleski. I didn't realize so many people were picking Cavalho here, but I'm actually pretty confident in, I'm not confident whatsoever actually, sorry, but I'm thinking of Nidaleski could be a pretty decent underdog in this one here. I do believe that Cavalho is going to be the favourite. I think he weighs in at 145 mostly because this is a 145 pound fight. Nidaleski recently fought at 155, and he has been beating pretty decent levels of competition on the regional scene, like 11-2, 6-0, 17-6, and 11-4 are pretty good wins to have recently, and he's on a good win streak as well. Pedro Cavalho came into Bellator, lost to Patricio Pitbull, I mean, as you do, and then he lost to JJ Wilson, who's a great prospect out of New Zealand, where I'm from, and then since then he did beat Daniel Wishow, a very, very experienced opponent. But prior to that, he was on a win streak in Bellator. Cavalho does have the high level experience. He's got the more Bellator experience, in my opinion. Nidaleski potentially a live underdog, but I'm going to be going with Cavalho to win this one as well, as most of the Tapology does too. Now, Lucy Bertard versus Katarina Sedora. I think that Katarina Sedora will probably win this fight, but if we're talking about a bet, I would highly recommend to stay away. Do not bet this fight. I feel like it's a very scary fight to bet. Lucy Bertard recently beat a girl that was 10-4 when she had when she would have been 2-2 at that point. So that's pretty crazy to win that kind of fight. But she's 37 years old. She is fighting from France. She's probably going to have that more hometown advantage. But Katarina Sedora, she does have a little bit more experience. A 5-4 record ain't that great either. But she has beaten a girl in Bellator before. I can't say the same thing about Bertard. Hard fight to pick. Probably a fight to stay well away from, but I think I'm going with Sedora as well. But Bertard, as I said though, she did beat a girl that was 10-4 relatively recently. So yeah, I'm going with Sedora though to win this fight. Nikolai Salui versus Joao Quabas. Joao Quabas, a 5-fight win streak right now, but he's still got a losing record. This guy did not start off with a good record whatsoever. It looks like a lot of people picking Salui, even though he's got a split draw with Bobby Pallett. It was 5-0 at the time. He did lose to George Hardwick in a fight he was probably being set up to win, because you guys know how Bellator likes to build up their prospects. But let's look at this 5-fight win streak for Quabas. It's actually not that bad. He beat a guy that was 7-2. He was, what was that, 1-8 at one point. He's on a 6-fight win streak. Sorry, I lied to you guys. Yeah, the guys he's been beating recently aren't that great, but he's been finishing them all. I feel like Quabas, if he's going to win, it's going to be a finish. Pretty crazy record if considering the fact he's on a 6-fight win streak and he's 7-8 right now. It's Quabas KO or submission or Sully will probably grind out a win in this one here. I don't necessarily have a confident play. Quabas, terrible record, but what a win streak, man. Nikolai Salui is fighting out at SBG Ireland though, so he's going to have a good team around him. I feel like he's probably the prospect to watch in this one. I'm going to go with Salui and this one here to win this fight. Fabriaki Diata versus Jordan Barton. I am picking Fabriaki Diata. Jordan Barton has been fighting in Bellator before. He did lose to Kieran Clark, who was 3-0 at the time. And before that, though, he was fighting over at Cage Warriors and other promotions on around Europe. And Diata, undefeated prospect. He's got a lot of wins in UFC. He's got 2 wins in UFC. So, and Bellator, man, I cannot speak English today, but no, I'm pretty confident in Diata to win this fight. Undefeated prospect. He's not even 26 years old yet. Jordan Barton ain't too bad either, but he is 1-2 in his last 3 fights. I think Beata is probably the one with the highest ceiling there, and I think Diata will get the job done in this fight here. Lewis Long versus the Belt Guiti. The point Guiti, I feel like I recognize this guy from somewhere, and yes I do. It's because he had a UFC run a few years ago. Obviously wasn't too good considering the fact that he lost to Sage Northcutt and Nasrat Haqparas as well. I guess it's not too bad of a loss to have, but since then he bounced back to Mehdi Baghdad. Mehdi Baghdad fought on the same Ultimate Fighter as Artem Lobov, the GOAT, my hero. And yeah, now he's going to be making his Bellator debut. Good for the Bolt Goiti. He seems to have turned his career around after getting cut from the UFC. But he is fighting Lewis Long, who does have a decent amount of Bellator experience. And he does have a very good win relatively recently. He's one loss recently. Comes to Oliver Enkamp, who's a good prospect himself. Lewis Long is the pick for me. Lewis Long, I think he's going to ground out Goiti and probably lock himself a decision with the grappling or a submission. Goiti, as I said, didn't have a good UFC run, hence why he was cut. And now he's going to be fighting at 170 as well. He's fighting upper weight class to a bigger guy. I think Lewis Long should probably get this one done. Mike Shipman versus Gregory Babini. I don't really know anything about Mike Shipman, to be honest, because I know Brandon K called him Mike Shipman, but he didn't break down the fight, so I don't know really anything about Mike Shipman. I think Babini probably is going to be the favourite, and he is. Babini's on a very good win streak right now, at least 5 fights, but he is 38 years old. Shipman, on the other hand, though, coming to the UFC with Bellator with a 13-1 record, and lost a couple of fights, and now he's bounced back with a good win over Pietro Panini. What about Babini, though? What is this guy's win streak looking like? He's making his Bellator debut. He did fight a guy that was 1-4 in Bellator. Like, how does Bellator even let this happen? He was 18-11 at the time. He's got a win over Emiliano Sordi. Alright, that's probably going to sell it for me. Emiliano Sordi, very good. I think he's the 2019 PFL World Champion. I think Babini probably has the momentum going. He's 38 years old, so I feel like you should be very wary of this fight and stay away. Kyle Stewart. I feel like I see Kyle Stewart fighting literally everywhere. He fought, yeah, he did. He fought in XMMA against Zach Otto. I think I actually picked Zach Otto to beat Kyle Stewart on that one too, so I feel like I'm a little bit of an idiot. But, yeah, he lost to Nashon Burrell, who's now signed to Eagle FC. He's fought in Cage Warriors. He's fought in XMMA again to Chris Curtis, who's now in the UFC. And then he's also fought in LFA. Kyle Stewart has fought literally everywhere. And now he's getting the call up to fight Lorenz Larkin, a little bit of an older guy, on another win streak as well. A pretty good win streak as well. The win over Andrei Kurishkov is pretty decent as well. And the Rafael Cavalho, I feel like Rafael Cavalho fought relatively recently as well. He's got a win over him as well. Lorenz Larkin probably is the pick by decision. But Kyle Stewart, this guy has been around, man. This guy has fought in so many different promotions. Now we can add Bellator to that list. That's pretty insane. I feel like Lorenz Larkin will probably beat Kyle Stewart, though, and spoil the Bellator debut. Soren Beck versus Charlie Leary. Alright, so I'm picking Soren Beck with a decent amount of confidence in this one here. Soren Beck's a good prospect, and he'll be a much better prospect if he fought more often. He does not fight often enough for me. Like, he last fought 10 months ago, and before that, he fought about 2.5 years ago. And then before that, he was still fighting relatively often. So I don't know if Soren Beck's been getting injured, or if he's just taking time off. Maybe he can't get into US to fight or something like that. Soren Beck's a very good prospect. He's got a great ground game. Soren Beck, probably inside the distance. I feel like a submission win for Soren Beck is probably pretty live. He hasn't got a finish inside Bellator whatsoever. His last finish was in 4 years ago. I think Soren Beck finds another finish in this one here. Here's Landu versus Gavin Hughes. Oh, this pick is hard. This is a hard pick. I still haven't really come up with a pick. Both guys aren't necessarily on the best win streak recently, or if that makes sense, they haven't had a great run. I feel like Landu is probably more live as the underdog than Gavin Hughes. Gavin Hughes, he hasn't beaten as high of a competition as Yves Landu recently. 13-4, 12-11, ain't that great to be fair. But he did beat Terry Brazier, who was 11-3 at the time by KO. Landu is probably a very good underdog, especially the fact that he's going to be fighting out of Paris. But once again, probably a fight to stay away from, in my opinion. Depending on how wide the odds are, I will be staying away from this one anyway. Now the co-main event, a short notice replacement, Joao Romero versus Alex Perezi. I believe Joao Romero was meant to be fighting Melvin Manhoof, and he was. And I feel like Joao Romero, man, I cannot English today. Romero probably would have been live to get his first Bellator win. I feel like that would have been a much easier win for Romero than this fight against Alex Perezi. I have seen a few different takes. I've seen some people say that Alex Perezi is going to absolutely dominate Joao Romero, and then on the other hand, I've seen that Joao Romero should be able to beat Alex Perezi because Alex Perezi's striking is quite slow, it's quite methodical, it's probably easy to read. I mean, Joao Romero has been in there with some of the best guys in the world, but he's on a 4-fight win streak now. He's almost 46 years old. I don't really know what his plan is. I don't know if he's expecting to be able to capture the Bellator gold. Joao Romero never managed to capture UFC gold, even though there's a good argument that he got robbed against oh man, what is this man's name? Robert Whittaker twice. I mean, but I think he missed weight in the second one, so he wasn't even available for that anyway. And then that KO of Chris Weidman, that was absolutely brutal. He beat Jacare Souza, who's one of the most scary ground game fighters on the roster at UFC. I think that we probably could see Joao Romero potentially use his grappling. I think he lost a split decision to Phil Davis, but Phil Davis definitely won that fight. Alex Perezi, man, he's on a good win streak. He did fight and he did submit the guy that took Rampage Jackson to deep waters in his debut in Bellator. His one loss recently to Julius Anglicus, who was a decent prospect himself. Alex Perezi is just so much younger. I feel like he's going to be so much hungrier than Joao Romero. I mean, a lot of people will be picking Romero because I feel like he probably does have a pretty good grappling advantage here. Pretty obviously, he was an Olympian to start with, but he's 46 years old now. I feel like there's going to be one point where he's going to start slowing down. I feel like at the age of 46, I think it's time for a younger guy to come in on short notice and beat Joao Romero. As much as it sucks to say, I think Perezi will be the underdog, but I just can't see Romero as a 46-year-old, you know. I mean, Perezi already proved himself to be good enough in Bellator. He's got a few wins in Bellator. It's hard to make a good read. Romero is a good fighter. He always has been, but he's just so old. And I feel like now there's going to be a point where the age catches up to him. And at 46, it's just so much harder for me to make a pick on that. And speaking of 46 years old, Cheick Kongo is going to be almost 47 years old coming into this fight. You watched the first one. Ryan Bader was beating him up, man. Ryan Bader was beating Cheick Kongo up badly. Cheick Kongo was looking for takedowns, but Ryan Bader's also got that great wrestling background himself. Ryan Bader was getting his own takedowns and landing great ground and pounds. But let's talk about Ryan Bader's last fight against Valentin Madovsky. Valentin Madovsky hurt him pretty badly in the first couple of rounds. And there's even an argument that was a robbery, man. Like, you could score that fight for Moldavsky. I'm not saying it is like a bad robbery or anything, but you definitely could score the fight for Moldavsky in that one there. But anyway, moving on. I feel like Ryan Bader is just so much better of a heavyweight than he is a light heavyweight. I don't know if it's the weight cut that really hurts his chin, but Ryan Bader's chin is pretty suspect at 205. I don't really know what to think about it at heavyweight, considering Moldavsky was able to hurt him as well, but I don't think Cheick Kongo at 47 years old is going to be the guy. His worst win was against Sergey Karatonov, who once again is a much older guy at heavyweight as well. I think Ryan Bader's going to do the same thing he did in the first fight. I think he's going to take down Cheick Kongo and ground and pound him out. And he's pretty big favourite to win this fight by decision at the moment. But I think we could probably see a ground and pound TKO for Ryan Bader to beat a 47-year-old Cheick Kongo. If you want to throw money down on this fight, I will reiterate that you can use my link, 125% sign-up bonus in the description, to throw down on Ryan Bader on BetUS, one of the only sports books right now with odds for Ryan Bader in this one here. I'm picking him to win. I think he is going to win with confidence. I think Ryan Bader's going to win. I think this is an easy one for Bader, in my opinion, to be honest.